Good evening, everyone out there. This is Susan from the Zoning Board of Appeals, welcoming you to our meeting of Wednesday, July the 13th, 2022, and it's just 6 o'clock. Pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of this agenda. First on hand tonight under general business is some minutes to be approved. Our clerk tonight is Catherine Garavaglia. Catherine, could you please make the motions for the minutes, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 20th, 22 meeting and the May 4th, 2022 meeting.
Thank you. May I please have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ann Brockelman. All in favor as we go around, would you please say yay or nay? Ann Fullerton,
Yay.
Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye, yay.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show the minutes for both nights, April 20th and May 4th, 2022, unanimously accepted. Next on the agenda is our public hearings. First on the agenda is 14 Sycamore Street. Would the clerk make a motion? Shall we? I think we'll open this tonight, but they have asked for a continuance till the 3rd. So would you take care of both those statements, please, Catherine? Motions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to open 14 Sycamore Street, P&Z 21-176. The applicants are seeking relief from required setbacks with an addition of a front driveway access in the neighborhood residence district, which requires a hardship variance. I'd also like to make a motion to continue this matter to our August 3rd meeting.
Thank you. May I have a second on the continuous motion?
Second.
Seconded by Ann Brockelman. All in favor, say aye. Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show the continue till August 3rd, 2022 is unanimous. Next on the agenda is 515 Somerville Ave. Again, it's a new case, so it needs to be opened as we're waiting for the applicant to step up. Catherine?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to open 515 Somerville Avenue, P&Z 22-069. The applicant is seeking to edit condition 37 to strike the language cast light downward from their ZBA decision that was issued under 2018-122, which allowed for a hotel in the MR4 district.
Thank you. Good evening. I see Sarah Lewis has joined us. Hello.
Good
Nice
evening.
to see you. Good evening.
Sarah Lewis, Director of Planning, Preservation, and Zoning. Madam Chair, if I may, I just wanted to
Yes,
let you know ahead of time. This was actually a case of mine, most annoying to my staff when I take prerogative to do that. But this was it is a minor edit to language. So I've been working with the applicant. The downward lighting in this situation probably would have been more disturbing to the neighbors and the pedestrians on the street than the uplighting has shown. So if you see from they had already installed it, and so I had requested a photograph rather than the renderings for them to show. So as I understand it, the lighting has not been used other than to take these photographs at this point in time until we can get this situation straightened out. So this is just it's just a language formality, essentially. So thank you for that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yep. Good evening, Mr. Dash.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Good to see you again. Adam
Same
Dash.
here.
Yeah, Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street in Somerville. I'm representing YEM Somerville Ave LLC, which is the owner and the applicant of 555 Somerville Ave, which, as you know, is the new Cambria Hotel on Somerville Avenue. You know that this board approved the project in 2018 under the prior zoning as case ZBA 2018-122. Present with us also are Jordan Warshaw for the applicant, Jan Brewer of Cambridge 7, who's the architect, and Christopher Ventresca of Ventresca Design LLC, who's our lighting consultant. I don't want to belabor the point because I think Sarah summarized it pretty well. It's a fairly small item, but we're seeking a revision of condition 37 to remove the cast downward part of the lighting. If you recall, the condition says that to the extent possible, all exterior lighting shall be cast downward and not intrude, interfere, or spill into neighboring properties. What we have in place does not intrude, interfere, or spill into neighboring properties. It's just not cast downward, if you want to use that wording. So we've met the spirit of this, but maybe not the wording of it exactly. But it does not spill. And Mr. Ventresca's memo, he's been through this, he explains, and how this lighting actually, because of the way it's lit, is actually less disturbing to the neighborhood than if it were uplit. It's actually it's also fairly dim. It's more decorative lighting on the facade, so it's actually less than the street lights and the Dunkin' Donuts sign next door and all of that. There's light pollution there, but it isn't from this. This is much less than any of that. So as an aside, I would note there was a trash enclosure revision and generator enclosure revision that was in the application, but that was approved de minimis, so that doesn't go before that. That's not before you tonight. So you can see from the memo that, which, as Sarah said correctly, the lights were turned on, a photo was taken, and they were turned off because we have left them off until you rule on this. But if you can see from the photos, the light doesn't intrude, interfere, or spill into anything. The light's high efficiency, low profile LED with tightly controlled beams, and the lighting is confined to the building facade with glare reducing louver accessories. And actually the existing lighting makes the hotel look good and beautifies Somerville Avenue. And as I said earlier, it does meet the intent of what this condition was trying to get at, although perhaps the wording maybe not so much. So if you took the downward casting part out, the rest of it's fine, because we're not spilling onto anybody else. But the applicant would request that condition 37 of the decision of ZBA 2018-122 be altered to strike the cast downward language. I know photographs were provided. I believe you should have those of what it looks like with the lights turned on. So, I mean, it is what it is right now.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this pro or con? Would our liaison please check that to see if anybody's raised their hand?
For anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, the way that you can let us know is there is a button that looks like a raised hand. And if you press on that, we can see that you are doing that and unmute you. I will give it a few moments if people need to find that button. Madam Chair, I'm not seeing anyone indicating that they wish to speak on this case.
Great, thank you. Before I turn it over to the board, I had a couple of questions myself. Looking at this, it's beautiful. I love lighting. It's white right now, Mr. Dash. Are they planning on making it any change in color?
Not to my understanding, but Mr. Warshaw, if Jordan Warshaw could be allowed to come on, and Christopher Ventresca and Jan Brewer, the applicant could probably answer that question.
Okay, well, 1 second before you go further, because if I answer, I should ask the first question. The back of this building, is it lit where it abuts the neighborhood behind them? Or are these on the main Somerville Ave side?
Yeah, these are on the front
You know what I'm
facade.
saying?
Yeah, they're on the front
front
facade
and
and
the back.
on the corners where the entrance is.
Right, but that's it. It's not in the back of the building at all?
No.
Beautiful. Well, then I don't care about the color. I love color. They want to do color.
Like I said,
Do color.
the picture shows you what the lights are.
Yeah, with this, a lot of this We did some of the stuff on Somerville Ave in the past. A lot of the neighbors from the back, the abutters in the back, were very vocal. So I just want to make sure there's no lights in the back. I think it's beautiful. I have no problem with it. To the board, anybody have any comments? The Anns, the Catherines, anybody? Raise your hand, please. No? Great. Then Ann Brockelman, you all set? You went out for a minute, okay? All right. Catherine, could you please make a motion then to approve the request?
Yes, Madam Chair. I make a motion to approve the applicant's request in P and Z 22-069 to strike the language cast light downward from condition 37 from ZBA decision 2018-122.
May I have a second?
Second.
Who did that? Raise your hand. Raise your hand for the record for me. Ann Fullerton, second the motion. All in favor, please say aye or nay if you're not approved. If you don't approve, Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. I'll let the record show it was 100% approval. Thank you, and good luck, Adam. Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Nice
And
to see
Miss
you.
Sarah,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. You all set? Thank you. Next on the agenda we have tonight is 205 Beacon Street. That is a new case. May I ask the acting clerk to please open it?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to open 205 Beacon Street, P&Z 22-027. The applicant is constructing a by right 4-story apartment building in the UR zoning district and is seeking relief from the facade build-out requirement for properties abutting an NR zoning district, which requires a hardship variance.
Thank you. I understand, Andrew, you're going to come on board with us?
Yes, I'm here, Madam Chair.
Can you come on screen, please?
Absolutely.
And the applicant here is 717, 719 Washington Street. Would you folks sign in and say hello?
Hello.
Thank
good
you.
evening, Good evening, everyone. My name is Attorney Nicholas Gomes of Fall River, Massachusetts, and I represent 717, 719 Washington Street LLC relative to the 205 Beacon Street project. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. So we got your information here. Would you like to speak to us and explain your situation?
Yes, thank you very much. I am here today also with the owner of the limited liability company, Thomas Pyatt, who is the architect on the project with over 40 years experience in architectural design. The building itself, 205 Beacon Street, has 12,000 square feet above ground and consists of 10 residential units. It has 11 parking spaces. The general units in this building are 2 bedrooms, 2 baths with about 1,000 square feet per unit. Currently, the building is, all of the rough construction has been performed. We have a solid building that is built. We are currently in the process of just finishing installing all the windows. We expect to move forward upon success with the interior work as well as the cladding exterior siding. We expect to hopefully be done with this project by the end of the year. Right now, we are before you today seeking a hardship variance of the Somerville Zoning Code, Article 3.2.10c. This provision is requiring the facade build out to be at least 70% of the lot width. Now, This did not become an issue until this project was recently reviewed. Back in February of 2021, my client did receive a zoning compliance certificate. And then June of 21, he received his building permit. Now, this issue regarding the 70% facade, why it is in existence is when my client was drafting his plans, because this property abuts the NR district, it also requires the 20-foot setback. So because my client was drafting with that 20-foot setback in mind, it has created this issue with the facade under the letter of the zoning code. Now, the problem that we've encountered is the 20-foot setback, because of the specific location next to the NR district, is creating the issue with the facade. Basically, my client cannot meet both requirements. Now, looking at the specific factors for the requested variance, under the first criteria of the special circumstance affecting the lot that would not otherwise affect other lots within the same zoning district. Here we're in the urban residence. What is unique about this property in particular is its location is right next to the NR district, which requires this 20-foot setback because of its proximity to the NR district. That is a unique circumstance that does not apply to every single parcel within the urban residence. And Madam Chair, if I may, and if this software has the ability, I do have some photographs historically that I found to show the prior home that was on there, as well as the current condition.
Please do.
Okay. And can you please confirm you can see the screen with the photograph of the building?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much.
I can. Does everybody see? Yep. Okay.
Okay. The photo that I am currently showing you is the side of Ivalou Street looking at the building. Beacon Street would be to the right. The neighboring parcel right here, 46 Ivalou, is where the NR district starts. So the problem is essentially this 10 feet off of the property. And that's essentially what we're asking for. We're not asking for a 70% reduction. We're actually only off by 10 feet. I show this property. This is the 205 Beacon Street location, but when it had a prior residence, single family residence on the lot. And as you can see, using the tree as the common feature in both pictures, there's not a substantial change going on from what was there to the current building from the distance away from the other district. While you have my screen, I also want to show you the rendering of what the finished version is going to look like. Most importantly for your consideration is this portion, if you can see my cursor. This is where the 10 feet issue is. The specific design that my client implemented in coming up with this building layout is an expression of Somerville itself in bringing together the urban feel and having people coming from different walks of life, different lifestyles coming together. And that's why the building, when you look at any certain angle, it looks different. It's not just a normal square. But most importantly is this little cutout area here. And also you can see the use of glass throughout this project. The idea is to maximize the light and the quality of life for the residents here. But this area that I mentioned, this is an open space with glass that people will be able to see through. So this is helpful moving forward on my last element of the factors, but I just wanted to point that out to you. Now, second factor is the since you can't see my screen, I did all, and this was not submitted to the board, but it was created thereafter. This picture is showing the conflicting zoning codes. So here, the red is the 20-foot setback. So this blue strip, which is within the red, is essentially the 10-foot discrepancy of what we're looking at. Now, the second factor goes to the actual hardship and financial losses that could occur. This project is substantially completed. It did receive the zoning certificate at the very beginning. My client has diligently constructed this building, and he's proud of where it stands today. And hopefully, with just a few short months, he'll be able to finish it. The actual exterior finishing is a particular Batten New England style as well, very conservative. Now, this enforcement, if my client was unable to get this variance, then he simply cannot build this building. This building would have to be demolished. And the level of that hardship is tremendous, and it exceeds what you generally see for hardship. Now here, with such a large project, my client has spent already almost $4 million during this process. There's construction loans, and my client, he's a successful businessman. He's had many years of being an architect and getting projects done, but still no one is immune to such type of losses, and it could have an effect on his livelihood, his business. And that would be terrible in this circumstance, because Mr. Payat is essentially building his dream building here for him and his wife to reside in when it is completed. So here, looking at the hardship, it goes to a personal level, because you are potentially excluding a owner occupant who's going to be a responsible community partner and member of your society. And having an individual there who is an owner operator is going to be always the best type of owner. You don't have to worry about landlords from other communities who don't have any regard for Somerville. That's quite the contrary with Mr. Payat. I've worked with him also with other matters in the Somerville community. He's a generous, honest man, and from his positioning on getting work done, he's interested in doing it not by this is the minimum cost, but no, this is what is going to be best for the project. And the best example I have of that is the pad mount for the transformer was going to be right outside in open view, and it could have happened. But he specifically spent approximately $100,000 for a vault system so that that transformer would be out of view. You can't see it's underground, is my understanding, and it's allowing for the aesthetic view to really come out. Second, in that same vein, my client is maximizing the rear of the building, which is where that disputed 10 feet is. And I'd like to show you the landscape plan. And here on the landscape plan, you can see the rear area is being utilized as a porch, open space, greenery, plantings throughout. The architectural design of this is to create a private column that is off of the busy Beacon Street view, and allow occupants to hang out, reside, invite friends over, and get outside. And the idea of having it on the rear side of the portion with the opening of Ivalo Street is to really pull in the beauty of Ivalo Street and the plantings that have been performed there and the upkeep, and really extend it onto this 205 Beacon Street property as an extension of that beauty and hopefully harmonizing the entire view of any passerby, pedestrians coming by, and an opportunity to visit their friends who may reside at 205 Beacon Street. So it has been well thought out in the actual creation of this building. Mr. Payat is not just coming in and trying to maximize the amount of units that he wants in the building. The original approval was for 11, but he specifically reduced one of the units down to 10, and that is in part for this aesthetically pleasing feature on the Beacon Street side, which is creating some outdoor space and again, visually appealing, changing the look of the building rather than just a basic square rectangle brick building. So in that regard, for Mr. Payat, his project and the hardship, I'd ask that you put this criteria substantially high when weighing your decision making, because it's going to affect him substantially. It's going to affect the company. It's going to affect this physical property itself. We do not know what would happen if the project does not go through, but it's going to be a catastrophic position that is going to have to be dealt with. And what is going to go, or what could go here alternatively, remains to be decided upon. And from my research, talking to my client and finding out their due diligence in getting this property, the existing property, it needed a change. And the change from this basic building to a dense yet responsibly driven project is fitting for the city. Lastly, the most important requirement from the standpoint of the board is making sure that this project is not going to be substantially different from the intent that the zoning bylaw was designed to create. And here, looking specifically at this project, it meets many of the factors that your community finds desirable. The fact that my client is utilizing building materials that are conducive to our area adds an appeal of modernization. In doing so, it is taking a dense residential property and making it something truly special. That was the intent of my client, and that meets with the standards set forth in the zoning code. So my client is not asking for a 10 feet variance of the facade. It is not substantially derogating from the zoning bylaw. We're simply trying to work within that parameter, and most importantly, the competing zoning codes with the setback from the NR district. So lastly, and I'd be glad to answer any questions the board may have, but lastly, I want to close with the the architectural view of this project and what it stands for. This important Beacon Street Evolue corner is, this is a cornerstone property that the board, in approving the variance here today, that they can be proud knowing that their vote allowed this project to go forward, introduced new members into the community, in particular Mr. Payat and his wife, and that's meaningful, and it's going to go a long way, and it's a decision that can be made with confidence that it's not going against the zoning code. This is not minor or trivial issues of hardship. It is substantial. It's the monetary losses are substantial. And then lastly, that this is occurring because of its proximity to that NR district. And if it was a block over and not that close to the NR district, then we wouldn't have the same issue. So in the totality of the information presented today, as well as my correspondence submitted to the board, I'd respectfully request you vote in favor of the variance today. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes. Is there, that concludes your presentation, sir?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. At this point, rather than go to the board, I'd like to hold our thoughts till we hear. Charlotte, could you please open this up to the audience for anybody out there that has any questions of Mr. Gomes
Yes,
or
Madam Chair.
comments? Yes, thank you.
So for anyone who wishes to submit testimony regarding this project, just like with the last one, the way that you do that is you click the little button that raises your hand, and that'll let us know that you want to speak so we can unmute you. I will give it a few moments if anyone needs to find that button. Madam Chair, I am not seeing anyone indicating that they wish to speak on this.
Really?
Councillor Scott, if you would like to speak, we're not seeing anyone else indicating that they want to speak. So I'm going to unmute you.
All right, thank you, Charlotte. Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. To be honest with you, I haven't been briefed on this and honestly haven't had any discussion of this with planning department. But this seems to be a situation where if review had been actually conducted properly at the outset, this could have been caught. There's obviously a remedy where a different building type would satisfy all the different conditions, but at this point, this far along in the process, I'm hard pressed to see how requiring an extension of the facade into the existing setback would make the neighbors any happier than leaving the building as it stands. That said, I haven't had any neighborhood meetings about this, and as I said, I haven't been approached by by either the developer or the planning department on it, to my knowledge. So, just seems like a real sticky situation. I'd be curious as to how it got this far without noticing this conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I guess that, and there's nobody else in the audience, Miss Charlotte, that's
There is
waving their hand?
Correct. There is no one else indicating that they want to speak on this case.
Okay. At this juncture for tonight, I will close the audience participation with the exception of Mr. Scott and open it to our board because I have some questions and I'm sure they will as well. I'd like to invite our contact person handling this case tonight is Andrew Jaminitsky. Hi, Andrew. There were a couple of questions that the counselor had about, you know, how far back this thing goes and where originally, were there ever any neighborhood meetings on this project?
There was not. So originally this project was permitted by right, which does not require the process that someone would have to go through, like for site plan approval, for example. And then for a hardship variance, a neighborhood meeting is not required unless the planning director thinks there needs to be one. In this case, that was not the case. There was no neighborhood meeting.
Okay, so to answer Councilor Scott's question, and to mine as well, I agree. If it's a by right project, they don't have to have neighborhood meetings and they can just go forward and go through the process of which this group has followed.
Correct.
Okay, now following that thought process, and there's so much of this building that is built and they're talking about a financial hardship. I have a quick question about, I'm looking at my notes because I was doing a lot of studying on this the last few days and writing up a few things. They went from 11 to 10 because they wanted to add the outdoor accent and improve the visibility of the building. And when they were spoken to about, I guess ISD spoke to them at some point because of the risk. How how much of the building was built at that point when they were first spoken to about it not being right because of the facade, the length of the facade and the side yard setback? Do you know when that was?
The applicant probably would know better, but I believe it was around 50% of the frame of the building was erected by that point.
And were they advised that if they continued, it would be at risk?
That is correct.
And that was from ISD?
Yep.
And do we know what the percentage of the building is now built?
Staff do not, but maybe the applicant could provide that information.
Mr. Gomez?
Yes.
Can I ask you how much of the building is built?
So at the time when the issue was raised, it was about 50%. And I would estimate that we're at 65, 70%. We still need to do exterior siding, finish the windows, and the interior finish work.
May I ask what the thought process was of going forward where there was such a concern that it was creating a variance? Why would you go forward without just stopping right away and stop blowing the whistle so we could get on this and rectify it? On your end and ours as well?
What I can say is my client, upon receiving notice of this, he immediately reached out to my office, retained my services, and we immediately went forward with trying to get a resolution on coming forward with the variance. We believe also, to the point of Councilor Scott, we believe this is also potentially the result of misinterpretation of the zoning code itself, and it's somewhat ambiguous, but that's not the purpose for here tonight. So to answer your question specifically, with the construction industry right now, as well as over the past 2 years with the pandemic, everything has been so backlogged that to pause a project when the engine is moving would just cause further delay, where because my client believed so much in this project, in the importance of it and bringing it forward to completion, he did not want to put any roadblocks and delay to wait and see what happened.
Okay. Well, that was the risk he took with his thought process. We've all been hurt in the last 2 years. Industries, businesses closing down, as well as being very much curtailed to like 33%. I could speak to that for 2 businesses of myself. So the risk factor is where management, we're old owners, whatever, that's the risk you take. So from 50% to maybe 70% is a lot of money. So I'm going to stop talking right now and open it to the board. Raise your hand, please, ladies, if you have some questions for the applicant. Ann Brockelman's up first. Yes, Ann.
Yes, I think more of a question for Andrew. I'm curious to see a map of where this NR, UR are next to each other. Is it possible to pull up the Somerville map? Because I'm wondering if this happens. I know Beacon Street is supposed to be a taller corridor, right? So really the issue is we're trying to create a commercial corridor with taller build outs. How does that impact the neighbors immediately behind? And how could a building transition or be sensitive, to this large, small scale stepping? And I'm wondering if that's going to occur across the whole swath of residential zones behind, directly behind the Beacon Street parcels. Just kind of more general. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. I will pull up that map for you.
And while you do that, I'm sure I share the same concern as to if they did get a certificate of zoning compliance, that's, I do think it's the architect should do due diligence to do all the zoning analysis, right? But they did get a certificate. So, somewhere along the way, they felt like they were following the correct protocol. I don't know how that happened.
Charlotte, could you make me a presenter, please, or have the ability to share my screen? Thank you so much. Can you see? Nope, not showing anything. Just having some technical difficulties. If you bear with me for a sec, thank you so much. Okay, that should do it. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet, Andrew.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Great. So here's 205 Beacon Street where my cursor is. And as you can see, the parcel directly next to it also is UR. And then the rest sort of down Ivy Lou and Morgan Street are neighborhood residents.
So this will occur. I mean, there have been many new projects on Beacon, but this,
Yeah.
Andrew, do you see this overlap in zoning or transitioning? It should occur everywhere those are abutting. Is that right?
So basically that standard, the 20-foot side setback is for, oops, I'm not sure, can you still see my screen? I'm not sure if it went away.
No, not anymore.
Here it is.
Okay,
We're back.
great, sorry about that. So the standard sort of that 20-foot side setback requirement for the lots that are abutting the NR are for the apartment building type only in the UR zoning district. Other building types do not have that specific dimensional standard. So if you were going to see the issue again, it would be for that building type, but it will be on a lot more of a lot by lot basis based on the lot size. And other factors could also be determined sort of if that's going to affect that. But again, it's specifically to an apartment building type.
But it's not inconceivable that it would occur again as these lots are developed for apartments.
It could, but from our knowledge, in the last 2 years with the new zoning, this was sort of the first case of this happening, this first occurrence.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
And so if this building were to comply, the building would have to be smaller by 10 feet or larger, depends on which.
If the
You showed that
apartment building
overlap
type is going to fit, this specific building type, like the building that's being built now, it would have to, so for the facade to meet sort of that 70% requirement, it would have to go into that 20-foot setback that the applicant stated earlier to comply with that standard for this building type. But an apartment house, for an example, would be able to fit on the slot without having any sort of issues with zoning dimensional standards.
No.
So the overlap plan that wasn't submitted, Mr. Gomes, can you show that again? That was very useful. So right now, to comply with 70%, the building would have to grow toward the neighbor. Is that right?
Right.
Correct. And I also want to add that what were situations where we can see that again would be for most probably corner lots
Right.
where there's two frontages. I just wanted to point that out.
Right, it's a corner lot, correct. The front is 70% minimum.
Yep. Yeah.
And it has two fronts, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so it's not a situation where to comply, you would have to chop the building off, but you would actually have to grow it.
Yeah, the facade would have to be wider.
Yeah, okay. That's good for me. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll yield to others.
I have, thank you, Ann. So yes, right now it's 41 feet and you're looking for 49.68. But let me ask you something. That's for the front facade on Beacon Street, the front entrance. That's the front of the building rule, right?
The facade on Ivy Lou Street is the facade in question.
Well, because well, wait a minute. How can they achieve the 20-foot side setback? What would have had to be done?
Well, basically it would, if they wanted to achieve that, which they're doing now, basically, having that 20-foot setback with the facade being at 41 feet instead of the 49.63, I believe.
So with the proposed plan has 41 feet. That gives us
Correct.
20 feet on the side.
That is correct.
That's giving us the full 20 on the side.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. Well, I don't want to speak out of turn, but to me, the 20-foot side setback on Ivy Street, where it's a neighborhood residence there, and that little house is still there, they're there. I know the picture that the attorney, Mr. Gomes, showed, the old house and, the houses as they were. You can't compare that little house for the side setback. I mean, even 20's tough with a porch now there and people hanging out for a big building like that with this little house beside it and the height. That's what's freaking me out. So I think these zoning laws, a lot of these guidelines, we had to take into consideration preserving quality of life for existing people in that NR zone, right? Neighborhood resident zone. So for me personally, I want them to get at least that 20 feet. I think that's imperative to the street and to when you go other places than to suffer with, the difference between 49.68 and 41. That's my opinion of this issue right here. I'm sorry if people don't agree with me, but I'm gonna, if you want to call it a soft heart or whatever. I love new, I love high rise. I love what they're doing for our main streets and busy, Somerville Ave, Broadways, Highland Ave. I love it. And I know abutters to the back of those streets, we've got to try and take care of them a little bit, even though we go forward and make the city, very progressive, adding more apartments, making it more dense for families, because people are coming back to the city. They love it. And so that's what me personally, as we stand right now, unless I hear more information to work with, I want that 20-yard side setback for this develop, and I'd like it for even more. Even that's too small. Anybody else have their hand up? I'm sorry. Catherine or Ann Fullerton? Ann Fullerton, yes.
Thank you,
Hi,
Madam
Ann.
Chair. Hi, how are you?
Good.
So, Mr. Gomes, are you able to put that overlay image back up on the screen? Because I think that'll help everybody. Just
Yes.
for final clarification. Thank you. So I think that we're all in agreement that Well, that's not true. I am in agreement with Ms. Fontano that the 20-foot setback feels better against the massing of the houses further down Ivaloo. I would say two things. That it would have helped your argument had you gotten a letter of support for the variance from the neighbors on Ivaloo, because I'm sure they would have happily supported 20 feet versus 10 feet. So that's just one thing. And the second thing is, I think your client took a really big risk. You made a big point about talking about how much loss this would be for him financially. And we all get that. We all got that just looking at the basics of the case. We really didn't need sort of the ongoing information on that. We're glad that he wants to live here and wants to invest in the community. That's wonderful. But he took a really big risk, because it looks like you were informed early in the spring, or he was informed early in the spring, that there was a conformance problem, and he chose to move forward. So if we chose tonight to not allow the variance, it really is his risk that he chose to make. And I don't think that people should see this board as a board that will easily not want to make conformance to a zoning code that was very thoughtfully planned out recently and released. Work for the existing or the new developments. Our goal is to support that zoning code. We do want people to be able to develop wonderful properties in Somerville, but again, big risk. And honestly, I wish this diagram had been submitted, because I think that it adds a lot of clarity to your argument. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Gomes, could I just hear what Ms. Garavaglia has to say, please? Ms. Garavaglia, please go forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed in the attachment to the applicant's narrative, it referenced the zoning compliance certificate as an exhibit. I don't recall seeing that anywhere. Does anyone have that available? Am I just missing it?
I don't see it.
Okay.
I didn't see it. Did anybody see it? Raise your hand. No?
Yes, I did download it.
Okay,
You did?
then I missed it, and that's me.
I missed it as well, because I downloaded everything, I thought.
Was
Mr.
it
Gomes is,
an attachment, Ann? Was it an attachment to the email packet? Or
I don't remember. I got through the email, staff email. But yes, it's this one. But there's no reference to NR, so that's, I mean, to me, that's, you know, off topic, but I think we ought to review the zoning review process. Right, there's no reference to NR at all on this certificate.
no. Okay,
I mean, if I may, to me, it's still, you know, it's still on the architectural team from the project inception, right, to chase out all the zoning, do those types of diagrams, the helpful one Mr. Gomes showed before the project started. And then, you know, if you see any conflict, present that to the city. And in general, when we do see that, you do err on the side of building less, right? Not building more, in which case that's what they did here, instead of encroaching and saying, well, this says I could, or I can get 70%, I want to get the 70% on Ivaloo. They didn't. So whether on purpose or coincidentally, they erred on the side of building less, being more conservative in giving more open space, outdoor space. So I do support that, whether it's, you know, they were lucky or not. With regard to what Ann Fullerton said about, you know, us enforcing zoning, I don't think it would have been impossible. They just have to build it out in the back. I don't think it would have been as catastrophic or detrimental as Mr. Gomes presented. As an architect, you just design more program and add to the back of the building there. I think either way would have been rectified. Obviously, one would have cost more. But in this case, you know, I do agree with Madam Chair that we ought to choose the option when it's in conflict that benefits the neighbors and open space more.
Thank you, Ann. Catherine, still have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This certificate says that it's an approval for an 11-unit building, and I remember Mr. Gomes stating that they removed a unit, and it's now 10. Is that correct? And
Yes.
I believe part of the spirit of the zoning code is to try to increase housing density, particularly for Somerville. So I think that's another component we may want to consider. What happened to the space that was removed? Like the 11th unit, could you remind me?
The front deck.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize, Mr. Gomes. Please
Yes,
explain it,
it's
Jerry.
essentially every unit gets more room, more space in the building, and it did allow for a unique feature to the building.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gomes, I think you wanted to speak before we addressed Ms. Caravaglia. Could you please?
Yes,
The floor, sir.
and this goes back to responding to Member Brockelman as well as Chair Fontano's comments. My client is in compliance with the 20-foot setback. He specifically designed it so that he would comply with the 20-foot setback. His compliance with the 20-foot setback has created the facade issue. What we are,
Right.
so the plan has the 41 feet facade when, according to the 70%, it should be 49.68. So all that we're seeking is a reduction in the facade from 49.68 to 41 feet. And respectfully, that is, in our opinion, not going to have a detrimental effect on the neighbors if it was, even if it was at the 70% mark of the 49. But the problem is you just can't have both zoning codes applying at the same time because of the unique situation of this law. And that is why we're having the issue. And Mr. Payat would go into and say specifically at that moment in time, he was looking at that 20-foot setback. He did not see the 70% minimum facade build out as a problem according to how he was interpreting the zoning code as an architect. And it was only when it was reviewed by the municipality afterwards that it was noticed as an issue in that interpretation. So that is why the reason why he didn't see it as an issue, because to him it wasn't an issue at that time. And then second, towards the Ivalu neighbors abutting, we have performed sky view analysis basically of what can be seen for the apartment building type as well as the apartment house type. And we see negligible differences between the two and what the visual effect would be between them as it would affect the neighbor. So those factors were reviewed in the design of this project. And the idea is to maximize the benefit in the view for those in the back and really pull in the community feel that Ivaloo Street has, and just adding it to this private property in a way that by design should benefit and work for everyone.
I have a quick question. On your slide there for the landscape plan, could you pull that up, please? On the, you said you have a little porch out there or a deck or whatever. How far do they come out to the property line of the abutter? I'm trying to see the picture because I see all this, the green and white little checkered spots there. And then you've got some round, yeah. What's, this shared outdoor amenity, what is that? Is that a deck or on the ground?
That is essentially pavers, and I do have an
Okay.
image. And if you would just give me one moment, I'm going to.
Take your time. Yep.
And I'm going to get the measurement for you as well.
What my question is that can all be nice and beautiful all the way across. You said you have a little deck and you have a place for people to come out and chat and take their little whatever. I want to know how close any building part comes to the neighbors, but not the yard, not the trees, not the little patch that you've got there, but any little decks or anything like that. How close do they come to the neighbor's lot line?
I do not want to guess and be wrong with how far off that is, but I believe, and I'm pulling up the image now, that it is within the 10-foot mark. And if I may have permission to share my screen, please.
Please, yep. Charlotte?
This is Charlotte speaking. You have permission to share your screen. You need to click to share your screen on your end. It's not something we can do.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And here is the artist renditioning from my client, showing the building, the patio layer, and steps to get up to the patio. So it is within the less than 10 feet to the property line. And I'm approximating here of 5 feet.
Was that deck originally on your plans?
I'm not positive on that, to be honest with you. But it's my understanding that this project was completed and that was also submitted.
Okay.
Yes, the landscape plan was also submitted.
With the deck? With the deck?
Yes. The landscape plan as depicted, this was submitted, and it did include the deck area, the
Okay.
outdoor patio space.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ann Fullerton, please.
So I just want to clarify that they're showing patio space, not deck space. So it's interpreted differently as a built item. So because it doesn't have footings or require the same type of construction, a patio is not interpreted as a part of the building necessarily. It's part of the landscape.
So what does that mean to a layperson? I see steps going up to it. It's an attachment to the side of the building. Have to be something that if you had to move it, you couldn't move it. What does that
Right,
mean?
right.
To me, it's an
So-
appendage of the building.
It is an appendage of the building, but it's not considered a built piece. Like, again, if it were a deck, it would need footing. So it would be part of the architectural plans and the structural plans, and the setback line for those footings would actually have to be within the setback, the required setback. The patio space is not interpreted the same, which is why we see some of the patio space go closer to the setback or the property lines than we would a deck.
Yeah. No, I agree. The patio, all that stuff, I think is very nice. But I just feel a deck that's been built up, this here other piece that comes over from the thing up until it's like around, he's saying like 10 feet. There'll people be sitting out there and stuff. So, okay, that's it. So who else has comments? Had that neighbor next door ever come forward to anybody? I know Counselor Scott said he hasn't heard anything from anybody, but that group there, that Duckling neighborhood, they're usually the Duck Village. They're usually very verbal. So, I mean, no news is good news. I agree with that. So does anybody have any other comments? Mr. Gomez, you had your hand up, sir?
Just briefly to your comment, Chair Fontano, I just want to say that I did specifically ask my client if this particular neighbor has come and made any complaints, and there's nothing that's come forward. He's on site regularly, very diligent in making sure the project goes forward. He's there often, and I have no negative comments to bring back to you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? You comfortable to go forward with a vote tonight? Can I see fingers, thumbs up for voting tonight? Ann and Catherine, Ann, you have, Ann, yep, I see Catherine, thank you. Ann Fullerton, are you reluctant right now? Is there something we could do to convince you?
No, I think it's the best resolution. I'm just very frustrated about the situation that this property owner builder has found themselves in.
I am too, but I don't like that they kept going. You know, this is something that's been this last couple of years. A lot of people are fighting this COVID and pandemic situation, and I get it, that when you get something in, you want to use it, do it, or whatever you can do. But when something like this comes up, there's been too much of this stuff with architects and the builders and going back and forth with the city on what's de minimis and what's not. And they use their own discretion. You know, you make a plan, it's by right, you send the plans in, everything's good. And then as we go along, we change certain things, you know, because you think that's nicer or you think this is this and that. But our choices affect other people. And then we all have to live with certain things that make us unhappy, and we have to live with them on a day-to-day basis. That's what I'm unhappy about. A variance is still a variance. I think we've become too lenient, and everybody's using the financial hardship reason. It's a legitimate reason, I get it. And you know, they're not talking to their, what I used to call aldermen, now counselors, or they're not working more closely with the city of which they're building something in and want to live in and flourish in and be a good neighbor. And I get all that. I mean, I've lived here my entire life, and I take great pride in Somerville and my neighborhood and what I hope I offer to my neighbors. So I'm not happy. And I realize you have to have your all full votes tonight. That's why I don't know if I want to think about this, or I don't know what to say right this minute. I need a minute to think about this. That's why I was asking Ann. Catherine Garavaglia, yes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly understand the frustration that you're expressing. I felt it myself with other cases, but I think we need to remember to look at this one in a vacuum. It's just this particular applicant. In this particular case, they did have something that was permitted by right. I do think they erred on trying to make a space that was more in tune with being respectful to neighbors. And in other circumstances, we see people going the exact opposite and building farther into lines and putting more pressure on neighbors. And in this one, I think we have more green space, which that's also part of summer vision and trying to maintain that. So I think where they had a zoning certificate of compliance, they believed that they were following the rules, and then they found out they weren't. Yeah, it's not great that they continued, but I think they probably were banking on they were being more respectful and doing less. So I can kind of see how the judgment call would have been made on that. That's just how I'm looking at this one in a vacuum.
Well, that, I hear you, and I've served on this board for a while, and I like to weigh it all out. And it is a nice project. It is on the main Beacon Street. It is, if the neighbor next door, and I know this neighborhood's very active, if they've not come forward, either to the applicant, to us, we haven't received any emails, and Counselor Mr. Scott, he hasn't heard. So all those things, that's why I was so confused, because I know how important variances are. And I know that, you know, I'm weighing the scales here, that I would have been happiest if they had stopped when they were notified. That would have taken a lot of my doubt away. But I don't want to be a stickler and a spoiler on a project that is nice. It's on a thoroughfare. It does abut the NR, which is, you know, too bad that it's so close. And it does have a lot of green space on that side, which is neighborhood friendly, and like you said. So, I mean, after you're explaining it to me and you're saying like in a vacuum and thinking of it that like that, I could vote tonight if you other three folks, which I value all your opinions. And I always say the pleasure of the board, because I feel you all have your hat you wear and you educate all of us. We all share what we have to offer. We have two architects and an attorney, and, you know, I think that's a lot of power. So I'm ready to vote tonight if you folks are as well, and to the affirmative. Do you want to vote now? Do we want to have a motion? I see Catherine and Ann saying yes. Ann Fullerton, you ready to go forward tonight or no?
Yes, we can proceed.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so I'm asking so Mr. Gomez, are you all through?
The one
Yeah.
item the two items I'll say is, thank you all for your time today. My client does appreciate it. Him moving forward with the project was not a snub of his nose. It was just a diligence to get the construction project done that was dear to his heart. And when we look at the factors for a variance, those three factors, as put forth in the department analysis, a lot of those factors are met. And I think the main bulk ones, the important ones, are met. And most importantly, that it's not substantially degrading from the zoning code. And I think the fact that we're looking at only a 10-foot, when the math is done, it's only 10 feet. It's not like we're asking for a laundry list of variances. We tried to comply here. This is just an unfortunate circumstance. So on that basis and everything said so far, I'd respectfully request a vote to approve the variance here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, before we go forward, because I know we have to substantiate our going forward with the approval of a variance with the criteria we have here, was there anything, I should have had you weigh in a little sooner, I apologize. Is there anything that you can add to this of what you've heard our talk back and forth that you'd want to correct us on anything?
I don't think anything else from
Andrew?
staff. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we
You can.
can. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. Nothing more from staff at this point. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Amongst the board, under the criteria, A, B, or C, we have to have, what do we think? Is it the relief causing substantial detrimental public mollifying the sub because of the encroaching on the neighbors? You folks look at this with me. Special circumstances relating to the soil conditions, yada, yada, yada. Catherine, I'm going to ask you to help me with this.
Sure, Madam Chair.
Which,
I think that the special circumstance for this lot is its particular location and that it is immediately adjacent to the neighborhood residence district. So I think that's created a unique circumstance where if we enforce the 20-foot setback that we would typically see there, we're now also violating the urban district that it's in. So I think that is very unique. I don't know that we'd find that many other places. Literal enforcement of this is actually not possible. I think it is beneficial to the neighbors if we go ahead and have the larger space between the building at issue and the residents and have more green space. I think that's a little more in keeping with what we've seen in Summer Vision. And I don't think that it would cause a substantial detriment. In fact, I think it'll benefit the neighborhood.
okay, thank you. So, can we have a motion then? Does everybody agree with that? Do they have anything they'd like to add that would be added to the minutes? Everybody okay? All right, so then I'd ask the clerk and let's see, I know Charlotte's there in the background and Andrew. So if when we go forward making our motion, if you want us to add anything in particular, please don't hesitate to speak up. You will not offend us. Miss Catherine, would you like to go forward with the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. In the matter of 205 Beacon Street, P&Z 22-027, I make a motion to approve the applicant's request for a hardship variance and provide relief from the facade build-out requirement as discussed previously in the meeting.
Second.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, there were 3
Yes,
recommended
Charlotte.
draft memo. Is the board looking to impose those conditions or approve this without conditions?
I don't think there were any conditions. I think they've made their changes and everything's here in black and white. And I think we're happy with everything. Andrew, do you have something you want to say about that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The 3 conditions that were recommended in the staff memo are just standard conditions that we applied to hardship variances. It's more about, registering with the Middlesex County Registry of Deeds and then providing us physical copies.
Yes, I forgot that.
Thank you.
Who's speaking?
Sorry,
I
Madam
heard a
Chair.
voice.
It's Catherine. Sorry.
Yes,
I was
Catherine.
going to say we could amend our motion to also include those conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you very much. And I thank you, Andrew, for picking up on that. It's very important. Thank you. It's being Andrew or Charlotte have it showing right there on the board. Mr. Gomes, can you see that on the board, the permit conditions?
Yes, and we have no
And-
problem with these standard conditions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. There you go, Ms. Garavaglia, you may go forward. So that's it with the conditions approved by Mr. Gomes as well. And thank you to Andrew Graminski for his picking us up on that in Charlotte. So she made the motion. Let's have a vote. Starting with Ann Fullerton, yes or no?
Yay.
Yay, thank you. Catherine Garavaglia,
Madam Chair, as a point of order, does it matter if we did not have the motion seconded? I'm not sure.
I like it. No, thank you. I thank you for the correction. Ann Brockelman has just seconded the motion. Ann Fullerton voted yay. Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye.
yay or nay? Yep. Yay. Ann Brockelman
Yay.
and Susan Fontano, yay. Let the record show that we approve the variance for 205 Beacon Street, P&Z 22-007. All members voting in the affirmative. Thank you. Good night, Mr. Gomes.
Thank you for your time today, and thank you to the planning staff for their assistance in the entire process. Have a great night.
Thank you. I second that emotion to the board and to the staff. Cases like this are hard, and I appreciate the hard work you all gave it and the effort you put forward. Thank you. So, next case is 151 Linwood Street. We have our acting clerk. Would you please open that up, please? Wait a minute. We did not open this on June 1st. We just continued it. So it does need to be open. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to open 151 Linwood Street, P&Z 21-153, which was continued from June 1st, 2022. The applicant is seeking multiple hardship variances related to the development of a 6-story commercial building within the commercial industry CI zoning district.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Oh, here we have Miss Lewis. How you doing? She's back. And
If I may, Madam Chair, I would sort of like to give you a little preamble to this project, and it's interesting, the agenda order that we had this evening and the comments that were made by the board regarding the acceptance of hardship variances and the criteria that need to be judged against. So this project is seeking, I believe it's 12 hardship variances. And while staff had advised against going forward, each applicant is allowed to make a proposal for the project they wish to see on their property. The piece that I want to mention is, so in the background we've had, and the staff report does address this, we've been working on a brick bottom neighborhood plan, a visioning plan, and that's been going on during the last actually 2 years. It's gone a little slower than we would have liked due to COVID and remote interaction. So while the plan would potentially, when we get to the zoning piece, look at a higher than the 4-story CI zoning on this property, the idea of expanding a storage facility is not something that we've heard from the neighborhood as part of the vision. So the vision has generally been moving more towards a sort of a mixed use, complete neighborhood, still keeping the funky arts district, manufacturing type sort of light manufacturing type uses that have always been in the Brick Bottom neighborhood. A use such as the storage facility tends to generate more vehicular traffic, which is going to create problems in the area. So it's one of those that is difficult for us to support in the meeting the criteria, and as well as sort of where we know the neighborhood has given us feedback and is going. So there's we've got sort of Andrew and is able to answer any technical questions in the background, but I just wanted to sort of see if there was any big picture questions of me regarding the reference to the neighborhood planning process.
Great, thank you for weighing in on that, Sarah. I know that the folks of this area have been very vocal in the past with other projects of keeping it, user friendly. Here we go again, going forward, growing, expanding, and doing things to make areas better. But we have to work with the neighborhood, and this artist group is a unique and special group. So thank you for reminding us of that, and that you've got a plan, in place that you've been working on. And that does explain a lot of stuff. Thank you very much.
And just for the record, if I might, to
Yes,
through you, Madam Chair, to anyone that's listening, that draft can be found online on the city's Summer Voice page for that Brick Bottom small area visioning plan. So thank you for
Summer
that.
Voice. Thank
Summer
you. Yeah, thank you. So the case is opened. Sarah Lewis has weighed in, and we have Andrew and Sarah gonna work with us on this tonight, and everybody's on board. Charlotte's in the background. So let's see, this Nicole Dunphy. Hello, Miss Nicole. Now, would you identify yourself for the board, please?
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Sorry about that. My name is Nicole Dunphy. I'm an associate with High Point Engineering, here to represent U-Haul of Boston. I am also here with Anthony from Darrow Everett, who is the attorney working on this project. And I think he wanted to give you a quick introduction of the project, and then I will discuss the design details and intent of this project with you.
You're the architect, are you?
I'm a civil engineer.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
And who's going to be speaking now? Step forward, please.
This is Anthony Ponabianco, counsel for U-Haul.
Anthony, can we see you? Can we view you or no?
Yeah, I don't.
If you don't want to, that's okay.
No, we're good. I think that should be set to go.
Here you are.
There you are.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you everyone for having us here. Madam Chair and the whole board, and Sarah Lewis and Andrew Graminski, thank you so much for having us here. This has truly been, and Planner Graminski can talk about this as well, a really collaborative and community thoughtful process that we've had here. And we have with us here, as we stated, Nicole Dunphy and Cedric Azor from High Point Engineering, and Matt Pepin and George White from U-Haul, who are also here tonight to answer any questions. Where this started is the need to restructure the existing U-Haul storage facility. It has a current 29,000 square footprint, and at it has been there for several centuries and be updated. Now, U-Haul in Somerville has been on the Linwood Street location since August of 1977, and at the 600 Mystic Valley Parkway since December of 1978. They've been a community member for decades now and continued to be so, and are looking forward to the next 50 years of being a community member in Somerville. And to start that process with their revitalization of their property here on Linwood, we went through 2 separate neighborhood meetings with Councilman J.T. Scott. We asked for the second one because we wanted to get additional feedback from the community. We wanted to have an ongoing dialogue with the community as much as possible, and that expanded into meetings when they had brick bottom neighborhood plan meetings, the open house recently, and the continued correspondence and dialogue that we've had with the community and with City Planner Graminsky about the application in and of itself, narrowing down the requests and the variances and the needs that we would have for this particular property. And through that process and discussions with the community, both from the councilman, City Planner Graminsky, and the entire community in the Brick Bottom and Somerville that we listened to, we have the application that we have before you. So it's really been a collaborative event, a collaborative opportunity for us, for U-Haul to put this forward. So we're excited to present it to you and present how we want to remain a vital key component of Somerville and the Brick Bottom neighborhood. The property itself is, as you know, is in the CI zoning district, and in accordance with the zoning bylaws, our plan to have a 6-story building on the property would require the 12 variances that we have before you. Now, the parcel itself is unique when we're thinking about variances. The special conditions that impact this are numerous, and I'd like to get into that on a general scope rather than as our application states, we go one by one. But I think it's helpful to get a picture of the entire scope of the parcel and what we're seeking to do there and how it's unique to this location, and the variances are necessary. So for this particular property, the southeastern corner of the parcel is located at or near the highest elevation point in both the Brick Bottom and the block in which the parcel is located, while the southwest corner of the property is located at or near the lowest elevation in Brick Bottom. The 8-foot difference between the parcel's high point and low point is not found elsewhere on Linwood, and is one of the most severe elevations that we find in Brick Bottom, and any differential between the highest and the lowest point is located here on this particular property, giving it that unique and special character that makes variances necessary, the variances that we're requesting here. Additionally, the length of the block in which the parcel is located is significant relative to the traffic patterns and vehicular and pedestrian. And what we sought to do with the property is to have a decrease of vehicular traffic through the planning of what we're seeking to do, both in the self-storage and in the manner in which the property was designed, is to have a significant vehicular reduction through the property. And I think that's important to highlight here when we're thinking about this overall picture. Additionally, the soil conditions are unique to this particular property. The soil conditions on the parcel are mostly backfill, comprised of old bricks, cobblestone, and other impervious materials. Here, we're reducing the the paved section of the current property into a much narrower, much less of a driveway space that you see currently in that particular area, parking and driveway. So that's another benefit that we add in what the plans are relative to the special conditions related to the property. Relative to the hardships that are necessary for a variance to be granted, the limiting of the stories and limiting of the ground level surface for on-site parking, that would limit the day-to-day operations of what is possible and what is necessary for that facility. The subject property drops an average of 6 feet in elevation across the site, and the necessity to have the 6 stories it does not derogate from the bylaws considerably when you look at overall scope and viewpoint of the neighborhood of what currently exists, and when you look into what the Brick Bottom plans, what they're looking to do in terms of development of the property. What we're seeking to do at U-Haul fits right in with that, and we need the 6 stories for the hardship, both physically and financially, of that particular property to make it into the world-class facility that we're looking to do and that Somerville wants from them. We're also adding additional green space to the property that doesn't currently exist, considerate of the neighborhood meetings that we had and the concerns that were raised there. We wanted to address those in acknowledging the needs and the desires of the community, but also to expand and to enhance the ability for pedestrian traffic throughout the parcel. So that's necessary. Additionally, there's no detriment to the public good in what we're seeking to do with these variances. The most of the variances relate to what we would argue are de minimis or nominal changes to either pre-existing conditions that are made slightly larger, like a driveway, exit, or entrance, or other conditions relative to the facade of the property that will simply make it more beautiful. And there is no detriment to the good to making a property more beautiful or to making it more accessible or to having better grounds for which to utilize that space in Somerville. So we don't believe that there would be any detriment to allowing these variances and permitting us to move forward with the development of the 6-story building. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Nicole Dunphy here because I know the board wants to hear and look at the plans, and we can talk about them as well. But we're happy, as we have been from the start, to have a community conversation and to continue that dialogue with you this evening, and we look forward to it.
Thanks, Anthony. I'm just trying to share my screen. Can you see the plan that's up in front of you, or can you not see my screen?
Yes,
You can see it.
Okay, great. So thanks, Anthony. As you mentioned, U-Haul has been a staple in this neighborhood for a number of years, originally opening in 1977. What you see before you is a snapshot of the existing facility. It's an odd, almost S-shaped building. As Anthony mentioned, Joyce Street has a much higher elevation than Linwood Street. There's a significant slope in this area, which brings you down that 6 to 8 feet of grade difference across the site. There's a few conditions today that we're looking to continue on with the new facility. There's actually 4 curb cuts associated with the property, 2 on the Joyce Street side and 2 on the Linwood Street side. One enters into a rear parking area, which is currently used mostly for the U-Haul vehicle storage. There's an opening here to drive into the building. Another curb cut down in this area, which allows you to access the public parking, the main store for moving supplies, which was in this area, as well as some more vehicle and rental parking storage. There's also another curb cut over here, which is another entrance into the facility. What the applicant is proposing to do is demolish the existing structure and design a new state-of-the-art facility. As Anthony mentioned, we've attended a couple neighborhood meetings, as well as had multiple discussions with Andrew regarding this project and the needs of the neighborhood. One of the comments we received was the concern for parking. Right now, parking is limited on site. There is on-street parking, but again, that's tight. Some of the U-Haul vehicles are also parked on the street. So in order to address this concern and open up the public parking for other uses, we're proposing to create interior parking on the first 2 floors of this facility. That will allow us to store vehicles for rent within the building and get it out of the public right away. It'll allow customers to get off the street and park within the building and, you know, safely access their storage units or the store, or however they want to go. So that was one, you know, aspect that we're trying to address. We are proposing to maintain those 4 existing curb cuts. We'll maintain this curb cut here, which will be relatively the same size as what exists today. I believe the existing curb cut width is 33 feet. We're proposing 36. This will be for vehicles, customers. There'll be parking spaces adjacent to the store area with handicap accessible parking, as well as some parallel parking spaces throughout the middle of the site. We're proposing to maintain the curb cut back here on Joy Street for delivery truck access to the loading dock area. There is also another curb cut that we're proposing to maintain here. Instead of maintaining that curb cut for surface parking, it'll bring you into the building, either through here to get to the 2nd level, or vehicles will enter from the Linwood Street side and exit from the 1st floor level onto the Joy Street side. So a few of the variances that we're asking for, so there is 12. 12 does seem like a significant number, but when you look at it, you know, 4 of them have to do with those curb cuts or the driveway widths. You know, the driveway width for this zone is 24 feet wide. Based on the current operation of the facility, the vehicles that will be entering and exiting the site, we run turning studies, and the need for the larger curb cuts is a necessity. So we're proposing to maintain those larger curb cuts. They'll alter them, you know, to meet the new building facility based on the needs of the trucks and vehicles entering the site. There is one variance on here that notes it's for relief from encroachment on the public sidewalk from the loading dock area. That is actually, I'm not sure if that's required. So this here plan, this kind of highlights the 12 variances. The loading dock one that I wanted to bring up to you is in this area here. We have come to an agreement with U-Haul that the delivery truck size will be restricted for this site to a WB40, which, as you can see during the turning study, when a WB40 is on site, it'll be completely on site. There will be no encroachment on the public sidewalk or thoroughfare. So that is there for your consideration. That, you know, this is our compromise to address that, and, you know, we're happy to discuss it with you. You know, as you know, the couple of the variances also have to do with the height and the number of stories. We are proposing a 6-story facility. The current zoning allows for 4 stories. And as Ms. Lewis mentioned, the future development will allow for up to 8 stories within this new brick bottom vision. So we're kind of in tune with what the future is proposing for this area. The reason we're proposing the 6 stories is, as I mentioned earlier, it's for parking based on the current demand of their customers to provide the parking that's necessary to provide off-street storage of their rental facilities, and then use the full 4 stories of the facility for their normal self-storage operation and moving supplies, maintenance. We are proposing to significantly, I'll go back to the proposal, significantly increase the green space on the site. We're proposing numerous large trees, some shrubs, grass areas, mulch, walkways, which meets the required green score for this district. It's a significant improvement over what exists today. We're showing green space here, but it's not maintained. It's sparse, to say the least, and that's pretty much the extent of your open space on the current lot. So, the new landscape features will be a significant improvement. They'll provide some shade along the sidewalks over on Joyce Street, and it'll definitely beautify the site in the future. One of the other variances we're looking for has to do with the building facade. In this area, the building facade and the entrance to a principal building is required along the frontage, the front lot line. We're proposing to put the main entrance of the building on the side within the parking lot. As you can see, the sidewalks in this area are about 5 to 6 feet in width throughout this neighborhood, this block. And to have the main entrance on the door would impede some of the pedestrian traffic. So again, we're trying to take the day-to-day operations off of the public way and bring it onto the site so that it's more manageable and better functioning for the neighborhood. As part of the project, site design wise, we're proposing some stormwater improvements. The project does qualify as a redevelopment for the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook because we are decreasing the overall impervious surface of the site. So that being said, we're required to meet the 10 stormwater standards to the maximum extent practicable. We're providing water quality swales, proprietary water quality units, catch basins, which will be tied into the municipal drainage system, and another conveyance swale along this edge of the property. So U-Haul, as I mentioned, they've been here a long time. They've listened to the needs of their customers, and they want to grow with the growing needs of their customers and be able to provide them with a state-of-the-art service. They're close to the MBTA. This site is within a quarter mile to the new train station that's going to be on the other side of Joyce Street. U-Haul is hoping to stay in this area for another 50 years and, help the neighborhood, bring new jobs to the neighborhood, bring tax revenue to the area, and kind of grow with the growing development of this neighborhood. So that's just basically a quick overview of the project development. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone on the board may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dunphy. Thank you. And whom else do you have that needs to make a presentation? Anybody else?
Here for you is two of the representatives from U-Haul. They're here if there's any questions that you need, but they don't have a presentation scheduled.
Okay, great, thank you. So before we go forward, the pleasure of the board, shall I open it up to anybody who wants to speak to this presentation? And then come back to us, okay? Is that all right with you gals? Thank you. Good evening, Miss Emily Hutchings. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you, Madam Chair. How are you?
Good, welcome. So
I'm
can
sorry.
we open this up to the audience? Unless, do you folks have anything you'd like to say preceding that?
No, I'm sorry if I came on to video prematurely.
No, that's okay. We like to see you folks. Make us feel like we have company with us here. So, Miss Charlotte, I think you're in charge of the audience crowd, the mics and what have you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
See, I'd like to speak.
for anyone who hasn't heard it before, the way that you can let us know that you want to speak is there's a little hand button, and if you press on that, it'll let us know that you want to speak and we can unmute you. Councillor Scott, you are currently unmuted if you want to speak, or I can come back to you after anyone else who wishes to speak has spoken up.
Oh, I can go.
Good evening, Mr. Scott.
Oh, good evening again, Madam Chair, and of course, esteemed members of the ZBA. Thank you very much, JT Scott, Ward 2 Councilor. I did host 2 neighborhood meetings about this project or about this proposal, first on September 1, 2021, and again 2 months later on November 3rd. The recordings of those meetings, being online, as all of our meetings are these days, are available online. Each one of them is about an hour and a half long, and they can be viewed at tinyurl.com/151 Linwood NM1. That's for neighborhood meeting 1. And then the same address, roughly, tinyurl.com/151 Linwood NM2. I just want to represent what I heard at those meetings and what I've received in numerous written comments and voluminous personal outreach from folks who are at the meetings and who live in Brick Bottom. To characterize this as a neighborhood-driven process is more than a stretch. Over the course of these hour-and-a-half-long meetings, some incredibly important conversation happened that really spoke to how the proposal before the neighborhood at the time and before you this evening doesn't reflect the needs of the community, the future vision, both of this neighborhood and of Somerville as expressed through Summer Vision and the Brick Bottom planning process, which has been underway for a very long time. Not just this current edition of it, but the folks down at Brick Bottom at 1 Fitchburg have been engaged in different stages of this planning process for over a decade. So I'll be shocked if there's not a lot of folks from Brick Bottom tonight that want to, I'll be surprised if there aren't a lot of folks from Brick Bottom tonight who would like to weigh in on this, but perhaps not shocked as, obviously the actual hearing for this didn't get a separate advertisement. So I'll just say that the universal sentiment is opposition to this particular project. There you have a laundry list of variances that would need to be approved that, frankly, I don't see the grounds for. And the project being proposed doesn't enhance the neighborhood. The sidewalk conditions, the existing sidewalk conditions, and improving the pedestrian experience of this neighborhood is about more than a 5-foot wide green strip on one side of this building. It's about really changing the entire streetscape throughout the entire Brick Bottom area. A ton of work has gone into developing that plan, which will hopefully, again, I know you've already been pointing to the latest draft. Hopefully we'll have a final one soon, and we'll start working on zoning that not only takes into account that plan, but also takes into account the ways in which we can ensure that the community actually benefits from what is ultimately very valuable, high density development area right next to a T-stop. So I am surprised that the applicant is moving forward with these requests this evening, but I have to state my strong opposition to granting these variances and represent the input from the community, which is that these variances are not supported by the vast majority of the people who attended those meetings and have gotten in touch with me subsequently. So nothing personal against the applicant, but that's the will of the neighborhood, I'd say. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and Chair and all the members.
Thank you, Ms.
Madam Chairman, may I respond to that, or do you want to keep going with the neighborhood comments?
Well, go ahead. If you have something brief.
It will be brief. You know, I've seen the plan for the Brick Bottom, and the plan for the Brick Bottom has no consideration for a business that has been here almost 50 years. And I understand that. The other thing with the sidewalks is a municipal issue. They're not on our property. We've looked at options to increase the sidewalks in the area that are legal, you know, without putting liability on my client to have the public walk on their property just to increase the sidewalks. You know, we could leave the building as it is. U-Haul does not want to leave this neighborhood. They've been in Somerville for a number of years. They want to continue to operate out of Somerville. And I think that is, you know, just shows their sentiment and what they're willing to do. You know, they could keep the building as it is. They could operate as it is. But, you know, they are proposing some significant improvements to this property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's hear from the other folks that are in the audience, please.
Again, if you want
Ms.
to
Charlotte,
speak, just raise your hand. If you message me, that can also be a way of letting me know that you want to speak, but we cannot accept public comments through the chat box. Just message your name, that is all. Heather Van Elst, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. You are unmuted.
Hi, Heather Van Elst.
hello. Hello. Hi. Well, just a moment, please. I'd like to make a statement for everybody. Ms. Charlotte, I want the timer on, please, tonight. For everybody that gets up, for the record, please, speak nice and slow. You don't have to yell, and give us your name and your name. I don't know if we require an address, but let us hear your full name first and last. Okay? Thank you for your patience. With the first speaker, go, please.
We require both name and address, so please also share your address. Give me one moment. Great. Everyone can see the timer?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Heather, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name's Heather Van Olst. I live at 1 Fitchburg Street, otherwise known as the Brick Bottom Artists Building. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. Just to say, this is one of the closest lots to the new Green Line Extension Station that will be coming in for East Somerville. So while this project may be in line with the future proposed heights coming out of the planning efforts, it's not in line with the spirit of the project or the goals of SummerVision. Let's do better. I would just ask the board to please not grant variances for this project or other projects that are merely seeking to minimize neighborhood detriment, but only for those that can really help unlock the potential of this location and that will substantially benefit the neighborhood and align with its and the city's goals. I'd also say to U-Haul, if you want to stay in Somerville, be more creative. You've seen this the plan now. There is a lot of room there to do something new and different. So keep going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I am not seeing anyone else indicate. Oh, never mind. Randall Thurston. Randall, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Randall Thurston. I'm a resident of 1 Fitchburg Street. As Heather said, it's the Brick Bottom Artists Building. I agree with the sentiments of both Heather and Councilor Scott on this. I do not feel that the variance should be granted. The neighborhood's sort of future vision depends upon pedestrian access and diverse industries in the neighborhood, and in my mind, this does not meet that criteria. I would also say that the amount of curb cuts on this building sort of flies in the face of its being promoted as pedestrian friendly. I think that people will need to walk to the other side of the street in order to negotiate this area. I appreciate the fact that there was some additional work done on green space, but it is minimal, and it does not really reflect what we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randall.
William Valletta, you are unmuted.
Good evening,
You may need
William.
to unmute yourself. William Valletta, you are unmuted on our end, but you'll need to unmute yourself on your end in order to be able to speak.
Is this it?
There you go.
Okay, Bill Valletta. I'm a resident of Brick Bottom. Been living here for 20 years. I'm also been an urban planner for 40 years. I have a different sort of point of view on this application. I'm not opposed to some variance for the modernization of the use. I think the responsibility of the Zoning Board of Appeals is not to attempt to put its own vision into place or to try and second guess what visionary plan may in fact come up with. You've got a rule on this case as it stands today. The zoning today allows the use, perfectly appropriate use in this kind of a town like Somerville, where we have so many students and young professionals who use these kind of services. I think there is grounds for hardship with respect to the differential here in terms of how this building gets modified. I don't think that it justifies 2 extra floors, however, as the compensation for that hardship. So I think you've got to look fairly closely at that. I think there is some grounds for justification for some variances of the curb cuts, et cetera, but they can do a much better job, I think, in terms of laying out the plans and ensuring that there's some more green space here. Looking forward, and I'm not sure that they've made a particularly strong case in terms of the width of the sidewalks and those aspects of how this thing fits and faces the streets. So I think they've got a lot of work to do. I think they're justified in asking for some technical variances here of curb cuts and the various layout and dimension pieces. I don't think they've made a strong case in terms of the need to have 2 floors added here as a compensation for the differential in ground level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Madam Chair, I am not seeing anyone else with their hand raised at this time.
Okay. I think I'm going to keep the public portion of this open at this moment, where there's still so much to cover. Okay, so I'd like to, does staff, before we open it up to the board, unless you'd like to hear us what we have to say, do you folks want to add anything right now to the discussion, or do you want us to go ahead?
Madam Chair, if I may, I would like to respond to some of the arguments that the applicant has made.
Yes, please.
I would just like to note, in terms of, there are several topics that were brought up that I simply disagree with on a professional basis. In terms of the topography, an 8-foot differential over a linear distance of 350 feet is really not a topographical hardship in a lot. It might be a larger difference, in more significant topography in terms of the neighborhood, but it is less than a 2.5% grade change from one end of the site to the other. As demonstrated by the development that's already on the site, this does not necessarily create hardship in developing buildings. There are many more sites in Somerville with much more significant topographical changes. And while the neighborhood might be relatively flat, which might make the site seem a little bit more hilly, it is, comparatively speaking, a flat site. I would like to note that discussion on the soil has been brought up, but not how that creates hardship necessarily, just soil's composition. And I would like to note that having a six-story use that is vehicle oriented and focused has an incredibly significant different impact on the neighborhood than 6 to 8 stories of mixed use pedestrian oriented development in terms of general impact to the neighborhood, traffic. I would also note that the board should not be considering these hardships in the context of a site plan per se. They should be considering them in the context of a hardship variance and whether the criteria can truly be applied to this scenario, whether there is a difference in the topography, soil, the lot size that genuinely does create a hardship for development, that there is some sort of additional hardship, and whether the intent derogates from the zoning ordinance. So all three of those criteria need to be met for the board to issue a hardship variance. So I would just like to remind the board of that. I would also, with all respect to Mr. Canabianco, this plan does not reflect collaboration with staff. They've been very respectful in reaching out and providing all of the application materials, but they have not reached out to us to request any collaboration in terms of site design or what we receive on the site.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chairman, may I respond?
Not right now.
Okay.
You folks listening in, you had your presentation. Make your notes as we go along, and then we're going to hit you up to, rebut whatever saying or explain something to us, okay? So, Emily, you're all set. Andrew, did you want to add anything before we go forward? Okay, beautiful. Okay, so to the board, raise your hand if you have something you want to say and speak up. Ann Fullerton. Joanne, could you lower that, please?
Actually,
Ann.
Hi, Madam Chair. Thank you. Ms. Dunphy, if it would be possible to look at the plan where you outline the hardship variances again.
Sure.
I had a question about the elevation in the lower right-hand corner. I just wanted to make sure I guess I don't completely understand why there's the first and second variance called out on the two corners of the building, and if you could help me understand that.
It's more just to clarify the height versus the stories. They are two separate variances, so we wanted to present them to you as two separate variances. They're basically one and the same. The story would be, 6 stories as opposed to the 4, which is allowed. The height would be based on, the height variance would be based on this side over here, because there is an elevation difference when you calculate the height of the building per the zoning requirements, there is about a 2-foot difference in height. So this
Okay.
is the worst case scenario on this side.
Okay, so the height is not being determined from average, site average, instead it's being
It is.
determined from most conservative, least conservative.
It's determined by the average grade around the site. Again, there's a significant grade difference. You know, if you walk on the site, you can see the slopes leading into the building. You can see how there's a grade difference. Next door is the National Grid or the Eversource warehouse, and they deal with the grade difference by constructing a large cast-in-place retaining wall. You know, so there's no access off of Joyce Street. So because of the grade difference, you do get the average height is calculated separately. It turns out differently on both sides.
I think that was my only technical question based on the proposal. From my perspective on the project, 12 variances is a lot. You probably saw our previous meeting where one variance was sort of a contentious conversation. We have had projects with 12 variances come before us previously, and those applicants worked really hard to further reduce the variances. It does sound like there probably is a case for your loading the variance, let's see, variance 9 for the loading activities, probably to get cost off your list as low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
I think outside of that, it's wonderful that Somerville or that U-Haul wants to remain part of the community. And I think in general, we would encourage them to be part of the community. They've been a good community member for a long time. I think the problem you're hearing, though, is that they really are looking at this facility to serve the larger community, like Somerville, Cambridge, Arlington, Boston, and not maybe focusing this proposal as much on serving their immediate community in a way that would make it more palatable. And probably that is the type of proposal that I would need to see to feel comfortable with a list of variances. I would need to see a proposal where it felt like it was serving the goals of the immediate community, their neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Fullerton. Who's next on the board that would like to speak? Ann Brockelman, you have something to add, please?
Sure, I can speak, Madam Chair. I guess it's the same sentiment as one public member said, you know, try to do better. I think, yes, we can accept that there's a need and a demand, market demand, and it could actually be beneficial to Somerville, but overall, it looks like you design, you know, the facility that you want, and then looked at the variances and said which variances do you need, and then you listed them. You know, what did you violate? And then let's ask for those, as opposed to looking at all the parameters, the design constraints, right? Of what does U-Haul need to be? What does a facility like this need to be to change business as usual, to, you know, be a good member and partner of a community with these aspirations for more density, more pedestrian friendly, if not pedestrian oriented cityscapes, sidewalks. You know, how does the practice need to change architecturally, operationally, to be actually a new paradigm of, you know, U-Haul in more dense city courts, I think it's an opportunity for you to redefine and really change this. And I'm not saying that, right? You want to start from the parameters. Okay, you can't have certain driveways. How do we make our operations fit that? So you start from the building, the site constraints, you work backwards. I'm not really seeing that yet. So it's, you know, I don't think it's efficient use of anyone's time to go through each variance. But I am very interested in what this could be, right? If more creativity, try to solve these site constraints, and to have such a facility and still be a, you know, a good neighbor to this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if I can
I-
respond to that or just, you want to keep
No,
going?
just,
or-
no, we're
Yep.
going. I don't see where Catherine is. I feel the same way. I feel that you folks have this plan, you know, you have your design, your layout. I mean, I go by other stores you have, and it's kind of the same thing. On one side, on the street side, nothing. You go in the spot, there's the parking inside, the front door is inside. I think the building's too tall. I don't care what the future brings, because I think the future, even though they're saying they're gonna go higher, I think when you have a building that's on the outskirts of a village, and that's what I look at Brick Bottom is all about. If you look from the view you submitted to us, you can see McGrath Highway and your building blocks the view of the, what I call the village. And so I think tonight, I'm glad you had a chance to explain to us what you're doing. I agree with the couple of the other board members that said, we want you hauled in Somerville. I think it's a wonderful service to the community. I've had the pleasure of using them before. I've had to go further out, you know, on the Medford Somerville line. You know, we want to encourage you to stay, but I think this is kind of a, and I don't mean to offend the architect or the civil engineer. It's kind of a stamp out, very commercial looking. I know we're a city, but I think sometimes it's too city, it's too harsh, it's too big. And we don't need to keep going forward with the way sometimes we've been stuck in the past. Like the landscaping, I mean, you guys are talking parking. And I know you're trucks and I know you're renting them, but I think it's a big warehouse for cars and trucks. And I think it's too big, it's too high. I think it's very commercial looking, the cutouts on the streets. I think you guys have to go back and do some homework. I do want to mention while I'm saying this that I have in my hands a couple of notes from people tonight that they had sent emails as well as others. I have a Chris Conahan, if I'm pronouncing it properly, and of course Bill Valenta. And I think, you know, and the other thing I want to say is I think a neighborhood meeting, and I think they said June of 21 was the last one. Counselor Scott, I think, said that earlier. I think it wasn't June of 22, I don't think, was it?
The last one was September of 21.
21, okay.
September, yeah.
So, I mean, here we are, July of 22. So I think we need some more. I'm not ready to vote on this tonight. I want to hear what Ms. Dunphy has to say, and also the attorney, Mr. Panabianco, to close up, to answer us and educate us a little bit more. But I don't think the board is ready to go forward with this presentation tonight. Am I correct? And Catherine, you weren't available a minute ago. Do you have something you wanted to say to?
Yes, Madam
You-
Chair. Sorry, I had my camera off because things were freezing.
I
and
know,
I
but I hear it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to shut you out. So please go forward, and then we're gonna let the attorney and the civil engineer speak, please.
I think a lot of interesting points have been raised, and Brick Bottom is an important part of the soul of Somerville, right? They are one of our artistic gems, and we always try to make sure we protect that and keep this area safe. I do think another aspect of Somerville is we are a large growing community with a lot of younger professionals and students who use storage units, who use U-Haul, and they are an integral and really important part of the community. I would hate to see them leave the area. I think that they are incredibly integral with having such population density like we have. I do think there's probably some room to maybe cut back on some of these variances, as we've heard from our architect members of the board. What I think might be really helpful as part of our evaluation of this might be a simple chart of this is the height variance, this is what's allowed, this is how much we want, and the change is this amount. I want to see what the actual impact of these are. Are we talking about a difference of 10 feet or are we talking about 20 feet? Right now, we've got a lot in front of us, and maybe if there's a way that we can see it really narrowed down, we'll get a better idea of what the impact is. I don't feel like I have a full understanding. I can hear 12 variances, but is the variance you need 2 feet? It might be 20 feet.
Understood. We did submit a narrative with the application.
Nicole, hello. As
I'm
we go
sorry.
forward now, because other people listen, please say your name first because it's on tape. So if you're going to jump in, please identify yourself just for the tape. So I'm
Sorry, my apologies.
No, you don't know. I'm acknowledging Nicole Dunphy. Please go forward, Nicole.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Madam Chairwoman. I just wanted to respond to Catherine. We did submit a narrative with the application package. In that narrative, it describes each variance requested individually, and it gives you what the distances are, what the difference is between what's required and what we're requesting, what the changes are. Some, as I mentioned before, a lot of these variances are pre-existing non-conforming uses on the property today, and we're proposing to reduce a few of those. There are, a curb cut that will be increased by 3 feet. So it's all spelled out for you. I didn't want to just kind of reiterate, that verbiage today. I just felt it was kind of counterintuitive. So I do apologize for that. But it is there. And, if we continue and move on, I'd be happy to get into more detail on each one.
One moment, thank you. Catherine, if I can ask you, I understand what Nicole just said, if I may call you Nicole, I'm sorry to be so
Yes.
casual. But 41 pages is a lot of rhetoric and reading. And whomever wrote this up, Mr. Panabianco or whomever, this doesn't cut it for me. I think when we go forward now, we'd like it, if you can simplify it a little bit more. Catherine, did you get this? You read this?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have read it, but what I think is for a point-by-point discussion so we can really understand, one page chart should be very simple. What requirement we have and what the difference is.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with everybody, because I went through this, I highlighted my little yellow marker, and I have the our staff report, and I went through that as well. I want to be a good student here tonight, but I think it's overwhelming. And I think for us to reduce everything to its simplest terms so that we're all on the same page, be an architect, attorney, whatever, it doesn't matter. So I think I don't mean to rain in your parade, Catherine, but that's what I'd like to see. Like you said, a couple of pages that we can interpret and really go back and, I'm going to let everybody else finish up here, but really go back and you've heard us, you've heard what the people are saying. Do you need to sit down with staff more and really understand what staff has in the back of their mind, and they're looking to the future, as well as they're listening to Brick Bottom all the time, you know, and the counselor at the time. So as we go forward tonight, thank you, Catherine, for that. I'm with that. Ann Brockelman, yes. And just a moment, Mr. Benebianco. Ann Brockelman, please.
Madam Chair, I do want to be clear, though. I mean, maybe my opinion differs from the board members. I'm ready to vote to deny as it stands.
Yeah.
I mean, a chart, we've all read the narratives as we do our homework. A chart isn't going to change that. So I don't want to mislead the applicant of saying a re-representation, of the material in graphic form or some easier to digest form would change things. Now, sometimes applicants choose to continue or withdraw, because I don't think it's a matter of adjusting here and there, right? I'm talking about a complete redesign in order to for me to reconsider this. So I don't want to keep dragging on. I don't know how the other members feel or what the applicant wants to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I agree with you. If I were to vote tonight, I'd deny. And I'm not usually quick on the draw like that because I try and feed off the pleasure of the board. I feel that's part of the chair's role. Catherine, I don't know if you're ready to vote tonight. Ann, I didn't know if you're ready to vote tonight. And again, they need all 4 votes. And if they want to have their vote tonight, we can do that. Or they can ask to withdraw the plan as it is, because I can't say it. To go forward with this, we don't like it.
Understood.
I don't like it. So, I don't know. Ann Fullerton, were you ready to vote tonight and deny? If you voted tonight?
Madam Chair, if we did vote on the current submission, I would not be in favor. And I agree with Ann Brockelman that I believe that the changes necessary are large enough that a continuance is not in the applicant's favor. Really, it's a matter of, again, we are willing to look at variances. It's the other side of the coin, making sure that the conditions of those variances make sense for the rest of the community.
Okay, thank you. Nicole Dunphy, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It's Nicole Dunphy with High Point Engineering. On behalf of the applicant, we would like to withdraw this proposal at this time and have further discussion with the staff and see if there is a reasonable solution for both parties.
Okay, and Mr. Anthony, are you right with her on that? You're the attorney here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, we appreciate when we started the conversation tonight, we talked about the collaborative efforts and the considerations that we wanted to make of the community and continue that conversation. And while we would, of course, prefer to continue and see if there is a workable structure here, it's taking the notes from Member Brockelman and understanding the position that the board has stated before us. I think withdrawal is appropriate. We'll continue the conversations with Mr. Grabinski and staff and see if there can be some appropriate changes and come back to you with a plan that I think you can wrap your hands around. And in a simple, we'll keep a memo to it so you can understand exactly what we're asking for. Because we understand and we feel that some of the variances that we're seeking are nominal, but we want to be able to put them in a concise way for you so you can, stride by us and move forward with us.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, did you have your hand up for a minute? I want to ask staff something.
No, madam.
Okay, thank you. Emily or Andrew or Charlotte, is this a withdrawal without prejudice? Staff?
We would request.
Can you hear me?
This is Charlotte.
Charlotte?
If the applicant is
is without
This is Brad
prejudice?
speaking. So the applicant is requesting to withdraw. If you vote, all 4 of you in favor to grant that request, it will be withdrawn without prejudice. The applicant can also
Okay,
choose
that's
to
it.
withdraw regardless of your vote, but that would be
Oh,
with
okay,
prejudice.
Okay, all righty. So we're gonna vote first for the withdrawal and see how that flows, right? Thank you. Catherine Garavaglia, our clerk, would you please make a motion for the withdrawal of the request of the applicant?
Yes, Madam Chair. Should I state the motion as allowing them to withdraw without prejudice, or is that irrelevant?
No, just withdraw, I
This
guess.
is-
Charlotte,
This is
withdraw,
Charlotte speaking.
period.
So we're approving their request to
Okay.
withdraw without prejudice. That would be
Okay.
the
Well, it is-
language of the motion.
That's what I thought. That was the question. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so that answers that. Go ahead, Catherine.
All right, I make a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw.
Do I
Second,
have a second? Ann
second,
Brockelman for the record, second. All in favor? For 151 Linwood Ave, P and Z 21-153, request for withdrawal. Ann Fullerton, yea or nay?
Yay.
Catherine Garavaglia, yea or nay?
Yay.
Ann Brockelman, yea or nay?
aye, yay.
And Susan Fontano, yea or nay? Yay. Let the record show the board unanimously approved the request for withdrawal 4-0. So this becomes now a withdrawal without prejudice, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So we'll see you in the future.
I
Thank you so much.
appreciate your time, everyone.
All right, good luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go. Beautiful. So here we are. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure working with Emily and Andrew tonight, and Charlotte as always. And we love when Sarah joins us. I think we had a good night tonight. And I thank everybody for your participation and input. It was a pleasure.
We do have one more brief item of business.
That's right, I forgot. Well, I didn't ask for a motion to close, did I? I didn't get that far. You got me. All right. So next on the agenda is we have some other business to talk to our staff people with. So go ahead.
So this is an item on the agenda. I believe we titled it Anticipated Comprehensive Permit. We just wanted to briefly talk to you all to let you know that we are anticipating a comprehensive permit to come in the near future. For anyone who doesn't know, a comprehensive permit is subject to MGL Chapter 40B rather than Chapter 40A, which is what we operate under with all of our other cases. So we wanted to bring it up tonight just to give you a heads up. There are some training materials that have been published by various entities that we'll share with you tomorrow. We're expecting the application to be submitted sometime in September and probably the hearing to start in October. These timelines are tentative, but we are very much in contact with the applicant and working with them on making sure that this process goes as smoothly as possible. One of the things that we will be doing, in addition to sending you the various guides that have been posted online, is so the location that we're expecting a 40B for is 299 Broadway, which is the old Star Market site in Winter Hill. It's basically a parking lot in an abandoned building and has been that way for the last couple of years. There's actually also an active urban renewal plan on that site. So the Somerville Redevelopment Authority is very much paying attention to what happens there. There was a proposal to do a not a by right project, but a conforming project in accordance with the code. And that would have gone to the planning board. That discussion was kind of ended in February or so when the applicant decided that taking the route of a 40B worked better for various reasons. But for that reason, the planning board is very much aware of this project and also interested in what the current status is. So we're planning on sending them a memo soon, likely sometime this week, next week, maybe the week after, unknown, but soon, kind of giving them the update that we're expecting it to be a 40B. It'll be before your board. But as part of that, we know that the planning board is very interested in what is going on with this project and will likely want to provide input. So we wanted to bring it up to you before we reassure them that you will ask for, or you will likely ask for, their input as an advisory recommendation. This was for anyone who was here, Susan and Anne, for the last 40B, this was not something that we did. But since we have so much more time to prepare and make sure that this process goes as smoothly as possible, getting recommendations from other relevant local boards is a recommended practice, since they have expertise in various areas that your board might not. They can help guide you on what they see. So that's the quick update. If you have any questions, Emily and I will be working on it together. So feel free to reach out to both of us and we'll get back to you. But that was all we wanted to provide tonight.
Well, I just have to, before we go off and make it brief, East Somerville here, we're dying for something nice up there, something new. It's, it's going to be crucial, I think, to the whole area. The fallout from it. Winter Hill was always Winter Hill. It was always active. It was always flourishing. It abuts the Forest Park, McGrath Highway, and I think I'm looking forward to really, really seeing what's going to happen there and inviting it.
That is
Thank
actually
you.
a very good segue to a point that I forgot to mention, which is that so the applicant will be requesting waivers from various dimensional requirements of the code, but they will be going through the regular process that would be expected of site plan approval. In other words, they'll be doing a neighborhood meeting, going to design review with the Urban Design Commission, and then doing a second neighborhood meeting before coming to the board. They are working on that even before they submit their application. So their first neighborhood meeting is actually next Thursday. If any of you wanted to attend, I know that you'd be welcome to come and listen, as long as you don't all speak up and cause quorum issues.
Yeah.
But I can send that link around if anyone wishes to come and just listen and get a preview of what's being presented.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, thanks everybody, the board and everybody for your input. I know we're doing a little double time, being short staffed, but hey, we don't need quantity. We have quality here. So without further ado, may I ask Catherine Garavaglia, the acting clerk tonight, to please make a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded by Ann Brockelman. All around the board. Here we go. Ann Fullerton.
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia.
Aye.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano. Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. Thank you. And good night.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.